I had a day at the track yesterday and well, it was really hot. I think it was 31 degrees centigrade, something like that. Yeah, very hot in the car. I wore a race suit, which might not have been the best idea. Lots of people were just wearing short sleeve shirts and you have to wear long trousers, so they were wearing sort of lightweight stuff. But anyway, it all went really well. I wanted to do some shakedown stuff on the car, and also I got some instruction in the afternoon from a guy called Matt Allen. Malin Sports, I think is his website. Really good guy. He taught me a lot in a very short space of time. And then I came in and we went through the data from the data logger, and we agreed what I needed to work on, and I was going out for the final run, which this would have been about 3 in the afternoon, luckily. And so just as I was going out into the pit lane, the car was making a really funny groaning noise from the rear end. Anyway, cut a long story short, it sounds as though my diff has completely given up. It's been whining ever since I had the car, and considering it's done sort of 170,000 miles plus 1.5 seasons of racing, it's not done bad really. So no big surprise. Now luckily I've found a replacement diff at a breakers nearby, so they're going to get it out of the car today and I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. So my task for today is to get the existing diff out of the car, so I thought I'd record that. You know, as usual, you can see this is a race car, but it's pretty standard E87. It might look a bit different underneath because it's got bright yellow bushes and stuff like that, but that's just polyurethane bushes, you know. If you want to do this on a road car, the procedure should be pretty much the same. The only thing you'll probably find is you've got more plastic covers and heat shielding underneath than I've got. So I may be deficient of a few bits of that stuff, but in terms of the procedure, it'll be the same. And to break with all of my traditions, I'm actually going to read the manual first, and then we're going to follow the instructions in the manual. So here's the manual. I'm not going to read it to you, but just give you an idea. Obviously get the car up in the air. Use a marker pen to make alignment marks between the prop shaft and the final drive unit flange. I guess that's because in theory they're balanced together, although I always wondered about that. I'm not sure that's completely true, but anyway, I'm going to do it. Unscrew the bolts. You should just discard them and replace with new ones. I've had about 3 new sets on this so far. I'm going to have to make do with these because I don't have time to go and get some more. So I'm just going to Loctite them on so that, you know, they should be fine. Oh, by the way, that doesn't mean I'm suggesting you should do the same. I'd just order yourself some bolts and get them. Remove the retaining bolts and plates, securing the right-hand drive shaft onto the final drive unit. So now we're onto the drive shafts, and we've got to hook the drive shafts up with a piece of wire. You shouldn't let them dangle on the CV joint because it can damage them. Discard the bolts again. I won't be able to do that. Lower the rear of the exhaust system. Now this is better than I was expecting. I thought I was going to have to take the whole of the exhaust system off to get the prop shaft out and then take the final drive unit out, but this is suggesting I don't have to do all of that. Get a jack and a piece of wood underneath the final drive unit, remove all the bolts, lower the drive unit down onto the floor. So seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? We'll see how we get on. So my exhaust system, again, this is probably different from your road car, is slightly different in that it's a Clarion Sports system. You see I don't have a centre box, which would normally be sort of along that length there. It'll be in the middle of that. I just have a straight through pipe. Then I've got the final exhaust box or muffler there, and then, believe it or not, on the back of it I've got the catalytic converter. So slightly different. What I'm going to do, I know it said do a load of stuff before you do the drop the exhaust system. I'm not going to do that because my exhaust system runs very close to the final drive, the drive shafts coming out of the final drive. So I'm going to drop this part of the exhaust and this center pipe. The other thing I've noticed, which it didn't mention in the manual, is I think I've got to remove this piece of heat shield, which actually runs quite a long way forward. Now that is one of the reasons why I thought I was going to have to remove the exhaust section anyway, but I think I've got a joint. Let's move forward. You see that joint there, just there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that, and then I should be able to pull this pipe off and then pull the back box off, and then I'll be able to drop this piece of heat shield, and then that will give me full access to the prop shaft. You can see that I've not got to use a marker pen because I've had this prop shaft off so many times. It's already got the markers from last time. So my prop shaft alignment marks are already there. Yeah, so I'm going to crack on with that. Regarding the reuse of these bolts, again, I would suggest you follow the instructions and get new bolts. I don't think they are angular torqued, so they're not stretch bolts, I don't think. They've only been on here once. I've never reused these before, so I'm hoping I can get away with it just this time because I really don't have time. Today is Wednesday, and bearing in mind I'm racing on Saturday, I do not have time to go and run around for parts, so I've got to keep this to a minimum. Just want to drop a quick note in here. I did decide that I would put new bolts in both these output drive flanges and the prop shaft flange. The only problem is that they may not arrive in time, so I may still have to use the second-hand bolts, but really I'd go for new ones if I were you. Okay, so I've got the exhaust, the two exhaust sections off. That took me about 25 minutes. It shouldn't have been so long, but the straight piece was jammed into the other thing and I had a bit of a struggle getting it out. But anyway, yeah, 20-25 minutes to do that piece. Okay, so let's just talk about this heat shield that's got to come out. I'm going to move the camera in here a bit. So this is the heat shield that you're looking at just here. It's got a couple of screws at the front. So these things, you got one there and there's one on the other side. They look like they're 10mm socket size. There's one of those funny body thing here, one of those up there, that's got to come off. And then you, with your car, will normally have a plate, this thing, yep, that goes across here, and you're gonna have to take that plate off. I don't have that, so I've just got to undo a couple of bolts there, and then I should be able to drop this heat shield out. I wouldn't advise you. I think you could possibly get away with leaving it in and still undoing the flanges on the drive, the prop shaft, separating the prop shaft from the final drive flange just there. But quite honestly, yeah, separating it from there, quite honestly, I wouldn't try it because I think you're going to end up damaging the heat shield. So get the heat shield off first. Okay, that's got it off. Now the one thing you'll find is these bits where the bolts go through, don't be surprised if they've all rotted out. One of the problems is that this is aluminium sort of foil stuff and it's against a steel chassis, and you get a electrolysis effect. I can't remember the correct name for it, but basically it corrodes. That's what it means. So be very careful with it, because you'll find the whole thing's pretty brittle. You have to be really careful with it. Now, the other thing you might find is the heat shield actually hooks under this plastic, these sort of under tray things. There's one there and one the other side. You may have to drop the side of that by undoing these things. You may have to drop it down to give yourself enough leeway to bring it out. It also hooks up behind the other piece of heat shield, so getting it back in could mean that I have to loosen off some of this stuff so that I can actually juggle it all back into place without you know, unduly stressing it and fracturing it. So the spanners you'll need for getting that out are you just need a 10mm hex socket for the 2 bolts at the front that I showed you, and the funny little spiral, I don't know what you call it, thing that goes into the bit that sticks out of the chassis at the top. They're all 10mm. And then the bolts down the front here, which hold on the plate that I showed you, they're 13mm. I don't think they're particularly tight. If I remember rightly, they're 35 Newton meters when they're torqued up. So not particularly tight, should be pretty easy to undo. Obviously you may have a degree of corrosion to deal with, which luckily on this car I don't, because obviously it doesn't see public roads, so I don't have too many problems in that respect. I just noticed something quite interesting about these drive shaft flanges. So these are the ones that come out of the side of the final drive unit. If you look, got quite a bit of movement, and it's the same the other side. I don't know what the end float is supposed to be, but that does seem like quite a lot, and I don't remember it being like that before. Actually, yeah, that looks as though, in fact, on the other side I seem to be able to twist it. Look on this side, I think, yeah, I can sort of twist it a little bit. Yeah, I reckon that's a pretty surefire sign. Actually, if you look, I've always had a bit of an oil leak. It's been very minor on this car ever since I had it, and I keep checking the oil level in the final drive. But if I just bring the light around here, if you look, you can see I've got hydraulic oil coming out of, or sorry, not hydraulic. What am I talking about? Gear oil coming out of the side of that that drive. There's no sign of any problems with the drive shafts themselves. They still seem to be holding up really well. I did have some concerns because I bought some cheap aftermarket ones, and I was told that they break because we give them a heck of a lot of stress. We really do in the racing. But these have been as good as gold. And I have still got the original drive shafts up in the loft in my garage, and I could put them back on, but these have been really good, so I think we'll leave that well alone. Okay, let's press on and get this this prop shaft disconnected. Okay, now check the manual. It turns out these bolts are angle tightened. I'm going to have to get some new ones. I'll have to race around tomorrow and sort them out. Same with the final drive ones. I think they're both stretch bolts, and you stretch them based on an angle. I don't, you know, I'm not going to risk anything, not for on a retirement from a race. Sure you can understand that. I think they'll probably go another time, but I'm not going to risk it. The other thing is they're in here flipping tight, so I'm using a breaker bar to get them undone, just to get them started. And then hopefully, actually, as you can see, I've taken one out already. I didn't want to make myself look an idiot in front of you guys, guys and girls. Where's my, just get this one out. Okay. I mean, as you can see, they were new. I'm sure you can see that they were new last time, so I think I've bought about 3 sets of these. The other thing I didn't mention was obviously put it in gear before you start to undo it, because otherwise it twists around. I'm going to have to take it out of gear, twist the prop shaft and then put it back in gear again actually. So let's do that now. Now, as you probably know, the prop shaft's got splines on it, so I'm hoping to be able to just push this back. Yeah, but it's not going to be that cooperative, is it? Because it's going to be pretty tight on there. Now, if I remember rightly, I did put some, in fact I can see the copper slip, so it shouldn't be seized on there too tight. Oh, it's coming off. Yeah, it's moving a bit. There you go. Okay, and true to its word, it does come off. Now the only problem is, if I let that drop down, that's going to bend the other piece of heat shield. So what I'm going to have to do is tie this up with some wire. What we'll do is we'll tie it up to the handbrake cable. It's not got any real weight in it. Yeah, there you go. There you go. That seems alright. Hopefully that's not going to get in my way. If it does, I'll try and figure out how to tie it further across, but I think we'll be okay. Alright, so that's the prop shaft off. Now all I've got to do is undo the drive shaft flanges, and then I should be able to start to look at the bolts. I've got this exhaust bracket here that's held on by a nut. I've got to get that off. If I remember rightly, that's 18mm, that nut on that side, because I moved it the other day, so I think that's an 18mm nut. But what we need to do is get the drive shafts off. Again, I think you'll probably remember it advises you don't let the drive shafts just hang, so I'll have to tie them up with a piece of wire, probably again onto this handbrake thing. Again, there won't be much weight in it, so should be good. The prop shaft flange bolts and the bolts on the drive shafts are all external Torx 12, if I can bring that into focus, E12. So that's what you want. Now the one thing I remember this from before, it's a devil of a job to get this on there. What you have to do, you just push the rubber to one side like that and then get the thing on, and then you can undo it. Again, I'm going to go with a brake bar, which I need an adapter for. Now this is, yeah, got no handbrake anymore, so I can't do that. How am I going to stop that from spinning? So if you've watched some of my previous videos, you've probably seen me do this before. So my trick to stopping it from spinning is to jam a piece of wood between two studs and then against the floor. I wouldn't do it if I was having to put a tremendous amount of force through the bolts, but they shouldn't be that tight. I think, let's have a look in the manual, see what it says. Drive shafts, external Z&S 80. Oh, they're pretty, actually that is pretty tight. They're 80, they're not stretched, they're just done up to 80. I've got a feeling I just did them up as M10 bolts at 70, but anyway, could be as high as 80 Newton meters, so that is quite a lot. But let me just jump under the car and see if I can get this done. All right, let's try this. goodness me. Let's put this on first. There we go. Make sure I'm doing it the right way. Yeah, there you go. So that's fine, that's holding that really easily. Of course, the only problem I'm going to have is that I'm going to have to keep moving the piece of wood. I'm going to have to move it at least 3 times, I reckon, or twice more. Let's get it off and see if I can get it off with my power wrench. Okay, obviously you don't want to damage that, but I think we're okay. Just make sure you've got a nice smooth extension piece on your socket set. I guess I could spray a bit of silicone. This is silicone spray. Let's spray a bit of that on there just to make sure that I don't cause any problems. I'll do the next one. Actually, that works a treat with that spray on there. That makes it pretty easy. Okay, so I'm going to continue round this drive shaft, do this one, and I'll do the one the other side. You don't want to see me undoing bolts, it's just silly. So I think the thing we learned out of this was either put the handbrake on if your handbrake's good and strong, maybe that'll be enough to hold it, or do what I did, get a piece of wood, jam it into the floor, stick it through the... Oh, of course, you're going to have you're going to have bolts, aren't you? You won't have studs. You'll have to put the bolts back in to give you a sort of something to purchase against. I can't think of another way to do it. You couldn't do it on the ground, so that's not possible. It's no good doing this first before you do the prop shaft, thinking that having it in gear will hold it, because of course the diff will just make the wheel the other side spin. So when you undo this, the wheel the other side of the car will spin. I suppose you could do it jacked up on one side, but this is all getting a bit complicated. So I think you need to devise a method similar to the one that I've used here. Maybe instead of using your wheel nuts, your wheel bolts or lug bolts or whatever you call them, use a couple of longer bolts, same thread obviously, thread them into the hole, then put your piece of wood through. So while you were away sipping on your Pims and sitting in your nice air-conditioned home, and I was sweating away under this car, I did have a thought. You know, we talked about the alignment markings on the prop shaft and the diff flange. Of course, this diff's not going back in. So there's no point in doing those markings. Obviously, if you were putting the same diff back in and you needed to get it out, say you were going to do the oil seals on one side of the diff or something, then by all means do mark it up. But otherwise, probably not much point. I was going to go straight on and do the second drive shaft, but you can see I've got all the bolts out of here now. It just broke away really easily. Now, I don't know, if I remember rightly, the first time I did this on my car, they were pretty heavily corroded into the flange and I had a bit of a job getting them out. So if you face that challenge, I think it's the usual thing of try coating it in WD-40 or your favourite penetration fluid, and then maybe lightly tap it with a copperhead hammer, and as a last resort apply some heat, although you're going to have to be very careful not to overheat it and damage either this rubber boot or even whatever's inside of here, because obviously there's a universal joint inside of here. But in my case, I'm lucky because these were done quite recently. As you can see, this is quite new. So I don't have too much trouble with this one. And again, I get some wire, thread it over the handbrake thing, cable thing. See, although I don't have a handbrake anymore, I've still got the cable trunking, which eventually I will remove, but it's quite useful it being there this time. Okay, so that's all hanging there nicely. Let's see if I can just tilt that down a bit. Yeah, there you go. So I'll move on and do the other side. One thing, you probably know this, but I didn't. Not the first time I did this, and I really made myself look a right fool to a supplier. I said to the supplier, "You've sent me 2 drive shafts that are different lengths." He said, "Yeah, they're supposed to be." I thought they were equal length. And yeah, so if you get a pair of new drive shafts and you're struggling to fit them on one side, just bear in mind that they are different lengths. Well, that's a new one. I've got bubble gum on the inside of my wheel. I don't know if that's one of the race mechanics who was with me yesterday trying to wind me up, but I've never seen that before. They were perfectly clean when I went out on the track yesterday, so that's happened at some point yesterday. Yeah, that wasn't bubble gum. That was, you know, those Maymo, are they called Maymo Chewy Sweets? And somebody had a pack of them yesterday. That was one of them. I can smell it in the when I've got it off. I'll just have to clean up that final bit. I don't know how the heck that got on there. I think they're trying to put my wheels out of balance or something. Okay, let's have a quick review where we are. So we've got both the drive shafts off now. You can see that one on that side, and there's the other one on the other side. Obviously, we've done the prop shaft. I've also taken off, if you remember, there was an exhaust bracket hanging down there. I don't know how I'm going to get on with this prop shaft being up here like this. I think it's going to get in my way. What I do remember, and this is not an issue you will probably face, but with these hard polyurethane bushes, I remember it was a real struggle to get this diff in place, and having this prop shaft in the way as well may well wind me up so much I decide to do something different. I think what I can possibly do is secure it further across, away from the flange of the final drive unit. I don't want to start taking more stuff out. I don't want to have to take out the prop shaft, because if I take out the prop shaft, I've got to do the centre bearing on the prop shaft. I've got to do the attachment to the back of the gearbox. Those are one-use bolts as well, so I'll have to buy new bolts for that as well. Yeah, it's going to get really into a bigger job than I really want. The one thing I would take out of this so far is, and I've discovered this along with you today, I would definitely recommend covering the rubber boots on these drive shafts. Give them a spray with silicone before you put the socket wrench in there, so that there's no chance that they get damaged. Just make sure you've got no sharp bits on the shaft of the socket wrench that you're using, or the actual socket head, because you wouldn't want to nick one of these boots, because quite honestly, I believe you can replace them, but you've got to get the universal joint off the end, and that is one monstrous job from what I've seen. I've watched a few videos of people doing it, so you really don't want to get involved in that. So do what you can to protect these rubber boots. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break now because I want to order the bolts that I need. If I get the order in now, I should have them tomorrow morning. I have to go and get them, but it's a sort of half-hour drive away, so that's not too bad. So let's get that done, and then I'll come back and we'll stick a jack under this. We'll undo the 3 bolts that hold it in, so we've got 2 front bolts and 1 at the rear. We'll undo all that, and then we'll drop it down, and we'll be ready to put the new one in. A quick additional note, it's been about 1 hour and 25 minutes to get to this point. I've been filming, and that does take a bit more time because you have to keep repositioning the camera and whatnot, and sometimes you make mistakes. You have to redo things. But on the other hand, I've done this several times before. I've got the power wrench that you see there, which does speed things up a bit. So I would certainly allow an hour and a half to get to this point if you were doing it. I'm telling you this because I know what it's like. You want to do it over a weekend. You've got to use the car for work on Monday. You need to have some idea of just what you're letting yourself in for. You might have a bit more to do than me because, as I said earlier, that there are some plastic covers and whatnot missing off of my car that would possibly not be true with you. And also, although I had trouble removing the centre section of my exhaust, I know what exhausts are like. I did my daughter's car the other day, and crikey, they can be really seized on. That can take an hour and a half in itself, just getting a section of exhaust off. So, but hopefully the hour and a half gives you some idea, and I'll let you know as I go on how much time it takes me to do the next bit. There are 3 bolts that hold the diff in, or final drive unit. There's one here that comes through from the other side of the casting that's on the back of the final drive unit. And then there are 2 at the front, which I think we already looked at. One had the exhaust bracket on it that I undid. Okay, now the order in which I'm going to take them out is I'm going to take out the front ones first and then the back one, which is, I think, the order in which I put them, or the reverse of the order I used to put them in. I remember myself and my next door neighbour, my mate next door, we really struggled to get this in, and we started off by putting the front bolts in first and then doing the back one. That didn't work, so we tried it in the reverse order, and I'm fairly certain that's what worked. Okay, so we got a brake bar. I do need a spanner on the other side, but I'm going to see if I can just loosen this just as it is. I'm going to have to get some leverage because it's really done up. Wow. I think it's done to 100 Newton meters. It is reusable. Yeah, I reckon that's spinning on the other side. Okay, so let's see, I'm going to do this because I don't have to. This is 21 mil. This isn't making good viewing, is it? It's what I'm doing is I'm putting the socket on the bolt head. Let's see if we can swivel this round and see it. The trouble is the tripod won't go any lower, so I'm struggling to get things into view. Okay, there you can see it. So you can see that this is the casting on the back of the diff. There's a recess and there's a 21 mil head, bolt head in there just behind the drive flange here. So we'll use one bar on that, and then we'll use another 21 mil the other side. So if you're going to do this, you're going to need a couple of, you might be able to do it with a 21 mil wrench. In fact, I've got some really long 21 mil wrenches, but it's probably going to be difficult because if you look, this is slightly recessed and then there's this rib here, and putting a flat wrench in there is not going to work. If you've got a cranked 21 mil, that will probably do it. This is all good stuff. You need to know all this before you start the job, especially if you're trying to do it on a tight time scale. Okay, let me get some, try and get some purchase somewhere. Yeah, not on my bumper. Crikey, that's tight. Okay, that is moving now. I can feel the pressure against the other bar. I don't know if you've ever seen Danny Sylvester, Danny DC2. When he works on cars, he uses a head cam. It's a pretty good idea because I've got the camera right in front of me at the moment. It's not easy. Okay, so that's loose now. What I'll do, I don't want to take the bolt out, that's the thing, but I do want to get the, I don't have to fiddle with this. when I get to the stage where I'm going to pull the diff out. So let's see if we can get this undone. Oh, I don't like that. No, that's not liking that at all. Let's just use a ratchet. It's got too much resistance on. It's got one of these nuts that's got the, you know, where it's distorted so that it grips. And it's just too much for that wrench. Okay, that's off now. As you can see, all of this stuff was new when I built the back axle. And as I've said to you, you know, I haven't run this car on the road. Well, I did initially. I did some sort of shakedown testing on the road when I had an MOT on it, but after that, I haven't done any stuff on the road, and so nothing's corroded. So you do need to bear that in mind with you doing this job. I would suggest you soak all this stuff in WD-40 the day before. Let it soak overnight and then do it, because I'm sure you're going to have a much tougher time than I've got here, because you'll be starting, you know, from a very corroded bolt, and I've seen them on cars and they really are corroded up. Okay, let's move to the front bolts now. Where that front bolt was a 21, this is an 18, I think, which is an unusual size on a BMW. You don't get that many 18, well, not in my experience. Yeah, 18. You don't get that many 18mm bolts. Now it's got a long thread going through the casing. It's in fact, you can even see it on the other side of the casing there, poking out. So I've got plenty of latitude to undo it and loosen it off. I want to get it quite loose. In fact, I want to get it almost all the way out, and then I'll stick the jack underneath it. I hate that bit. It's quite sketchy, isn't it, when you've got the jack underneath and the thing doesn't sit properly on the jack, so it's pretty sketchy, but there's no other way. Let's see if that power wrench will work now. I keep hitting my head on absolutely everything under here. The handbrake cable's in the way a bit, so you're probably going to have to hold that to one side. Okay, I think that's as far as I want to go for the moment. Yeah, that's coming out fine. Same deal here, you know, I've had this stuff out of here not so long ago, so you're going to have a tougher time than me, and as I said, you need to soak it in WD-40 or something to loosen it up. Let's come over here now, see if I can get that in camera shot. So there's the other one, it's just the mirror image on the other side with the prop out of the way. Yeah, this handbrake thing is a bit of a nuisance. I might be better off using an extension on the bolt, actually, on the socket wrench. Let's get a short extension and then we can whiz that one out. All right, yeah, that's better. All right, so they're both, well, that one's flush. Let's take that in a bit because it's quite a big casting. There we go. I think that should be enough. Whoops. Let's bring you back a bit. There we go. Okay, so this is all pretty, well, I'm not going to shake it too much, but it should all be pretty loose now. So what I need to do now is support the weight of it. And then I can get the bolts out and hopefully it'll all drop. Obviously it's going to drop from this point, this side. This lot's all going to stay in place. This bit here is going to drop, and then at the back the casting's going to drop. So let's get the jack in place. Okay, as you can see, I've got the jack under the belly of it. There isn't an easy way to do this, I can tell you. I remember this from last time. That's a bit off centre actually. I think I need to move it across a bit. It doesn't balance easily because it's completely top heavy, as I'm sure you can appreciate. But we'll do our best. Okay, I don't want to put too much pressure on it because I don't want the bolts to tighten up. Okay, now let's remove some bolts and see what happens. Sounds like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it? Oh, that doesn't fit in there, so the idea of using an extension that side doesn't work. You're not really seeing that, are you? Yes, I wasn't able to get an extension on this side, a socket extension, so I've had to go back to this like this. Move the cable, handbrake cable up out of the way. Okay, that bolt is free. Do I need to take it right out? Probably not actually. Not much point, is there? Might as well leave it where it is. Okay, let's do the other side. For this one I will use the extension. Obviously no secret me using this power wrench, you just use a ratchet wrench. But yes, what I mean is it's not doing anything special for me other than saving time. Okay. That must be out surely. Come on. Come on. Oh, it must still be in the threads. Feels like it is. It's turning anyway. I haven't got a 4-post lift or 2-post lift or anything like that, so I'm doing this on off axle stands. Just please make sure you got it safely propped up and use additional axle stands for safety. If you're doing it in your drive, I feel for you. I mean, I've got a nice garage to do it in, I'm very lucky. But yeah, I admire you if you're doing it in your drive. I used to do it just like you do. Same for me. Right, now this rear bolt, the question is it going to move without doing something severe to it? What we'll do is we'll try and tap it out. I just don't want the diff to fall. That's the, I suppose actually when you think about it, as the diff's not going back in the car, what do I care? But I don't want to, well, I don't want to damage my floor of my garage is one thing. Okay, let's use a copper faced hammer here, because the one thing you don't want to do is damage this bolt. These, I don't know if I said this to you earlier, but these bolts are reusable, these 3 bolts, according to the manual. Okay, that's sliding through there fairly easily. I'll need to punch that through. Now, if you don't have the right size punch to do this, just use a bolt that's slightly smaller, is my advice. And I'm going to have to do this left-handed, which should be fun. Okay, now I'm getting to that point where the whole thing's likely to drop. So let's, whoops. Okay, so you probably didn't see, but the diff's dropped slightly. Now the first thing is, you probably heard a washer fall out. In my setup, because I've got these polyurethane bushes, I've got this additional washer that goes between the bush and the diff casing. You don't have that, so don't worry about that. Just move the light. And let's move this back a bit, so we don't end up having a smashed camera as well. Okay, so the whole thing's sort of tilted forward at the moment. Now I'm going to have to support the front of it while I let it down. Okay, you've missed, obviously you didn't see most of that. Nothing drastic happened, but I can tell you it was a bit of a fraught moment because it was wiggling all over the place. It's pretty sketchy when you're getting this out, but it is out. So let's now drag it out with the trolley jack. They're not particularly, well, I say they're not heavy. They're probably about 20 kilos, and you wouldn't want it dropping on your arm, I can tell you, because it wouldn't do you a lot of good. But it's not quite as bad as taking out the gearbox. Okay, and there it is, out of the car. Phew. All right, so I think for this video I'm going to leave it at that, because I wanted to do one of taking it out. I will, if time allowing, I will try and video myself putting it back in. The problem I've got is I'm going to be really up against it, because I've got to have this car back together and right ready by Friday night, because I need to load it on the trailer ready for the race on Saturday. Yeah, okay, so I think that's enough for this one. I hope you found that useful, and as I said, I'll try and follow up with installation of the diff video. The other thing I might do with this diff is strip it down to have a look inside it to see if I can identify what's gone wrong. I've never dismantled a diff before, so might be interesting. Okay, catch you on the next one.